Hello again, this is Ms. Estes, and today we're going to talk about volume. Our I can statement for today is I can relate volume to the operations of multiplication and addition and solve real-world and mathematical problems involving volume. When we want to find the volume of rectangular prisms, there are two formulas that we can use. Our first formula here on the left is multiplying length times width times height to equal volume. We're taking all three dimensions, multiplying them together. So if we look at our example, we have a length of 5 cubes, we have a width of 2 cubes, we have a height of 4 cubes. So we can multiply 5 times 2, which equals 10, 10 times 4, which equals 40 cubic inches. We can also use the formula area of the base times height in order to find volume. We know that when we find the area of something, we multiply the length times the width. So if we look at our model, we have a length of 4 cubes and a width of 3 cubes. That would give us the area of the base of the prism, and then we would take the product and multiply it by the height, 2. So 4 times 3 is 12, so 12 would be the area of the base. And then we would multiply times the height of 2, and 12 times 2 is 24 cubic inches. So let's practice with a few examples. So the first thing we want to do anytime we're trying to find the volume is we want to write down our volume formula. I'm going to use the formula volume equals length times width times height. Because if I look at my model, I see I have all three of those dimensions. So this would be the best formula to use. So our length is 2 inches. Our width, or how far back or how deep it is 5 inches. And then our height is 3 inches. So now all we have to do is multiply. 2 times 5 equals 10. 10 times 3 equals 30. So that means the volume of this rectangular prism is 30 cubic inches. We always have to make sure that we express our volume in cubic units. And since we are measuring each of our dimensions in inches, that's why we have our volume in cubic inches. All right, our second example. Again, I see all three of my dimensions, so I'm going to write down my formula to start. Length times width times height. So I look, it has a length of 7, has a width of 4, and a height of 3. So when we go to multiply our three numbers, it does not matter the order that we multiply numbers. So I'm going to begin by multiplying 4 times 3. That's an easier fact for me to work with. I know 4 times 3 equals 12. And then I can multiply 7 times 12, which is a math fact. And I know that 7 times 12 equals 84. So the volume of this rectangular prism is 84 cubic feet, because my dimensions are given in feet. Always go back and double check your model to make sure that you are using the right measurement unit. All right, now we have a word problem. Janie has a right rectangular prism shaped box with a base of 64 square inches and a height of 8 inches. What is the volume of her box? Well, we just learned two volume formulas. We know volume equals length times width times height. And we know that volume equals area of the base times height. So which of these two formulas would be best to use for this problem? So let's go back and look at the information we underlined. Well, the first bit of information I underlined tells us that the base is 64 square inches. So if I look, my second formula is going to be the best formula to use. The area of the base is 64. The height is 8 inches. So now in order to find the volume, I'm going to rewrite my problem so I can work it out correctly. This isn't a math fact, so I have to show my work. 8 times 4 is 32. 8 times 6 is 48. Plus 3 is 51. So that tells me that the volume of her right rectangular prism-shaped box is 512 cubic inches. Next, we have to determine the volume of the shoebox. So when I look at the shoebox, I see all 3 dimensions. So I'm going to use my volume formula. Volume equals length times width times height. So if I look in my diagram, the length is 18. My width, that's right, is 12. And my height is 8. So when I go to multiply, I'm first going to multiply 12 times 8. That's a math fact. I know that that is 96. Then I need to multiply 18 times 96. So I'm going to write it over here to the right, and I'm going to stack it. You can use whatever strategy you would like. I'm going to use partial products. I know that 8 times 6 is 48. Now 8 times 90 would be 720. 10 times 6 would be 60. And 10 times 90 would be 900. Now all I have to do is add. So that gives me 8. I know that 4 plus 6 is 10, plus 2 equals 12. 1 plus 7 is 8, plus 9 is 17. So the volume of this shoebox would be 1,728 cubic inches. Well, the volume formulas only work if you have a rectangular prism. How do you find the volume of the following figure? Because when I look at this figure, I don't only see a length, a width, and a height. This is what we call a composite figure. So let's see what we would need to do in order to find the volume of these type figures. So we have 3 easy steps to follow in order to find the volume of an irregular shape. We're going to break it apart to find volume. So step 1 says break apart the figure into 2 or more rectangular prisms. Then calculate the volume for each prism. Last, you will add the volume of all the prisms together to get the total volume of the irregular shape. So here's our composite figure, or our irregular shape. As you can see, they broke it apart horizontally. So now we have prism A up top, and we have prism B on the bottom. So for shape A, we have a length of 1, a width of 1, and a height of 2. So if we multiply those 3 dimensions together, 1 times 1 times 2 gives us a volume of 2 cubic centimeters. For shape B, we have a length of 5, a width of 1, and a height of 1. 5 times 1 times 1 equals 5 centimeters cubed. So now that we know the volume of shape A and shape B, we need to complete the third step. We're going to add the two together. 2 centimeters cubed plus 5 centimeters cubed gives us a total volume of 7 centimeters cubed. One very important thing to remember is there is always more than one way to break apart the figure. In this example, they broke it apart horizontally. We could have also broken this apart vertically. Our steps along the way would be a little different, but our total volume would still be 7 cubic centimeters. So let's do an example, going through our 3 steps. So our first step is to break the figure apart. So let's break this figure apart vertically. We broke it apart vertically. So now we have prism A and we have prism B. So that means we're going to have to use our volume formula 2 times. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down twice. That way I don't forget that I have to do this 2 times. When I look at prism A, my length is 5, my width is 4, and my height is 8. Now let's find the dimensions for our second prism, and then all we have to do is go back and do our math. So with our second prism, my length is this right here, but I don't see that it's labeled anywhere, and sometimes that's the case. So if we don't have it labeled, we need to look at the prism and see if there is other information that could help us figure out what this length should be. Well, I see that all the way across the top up here is 8 inches. And I also see that the length of prism A was 5 inches. 5 plus what is going to equal 8? That's correct, 3. So we know that that length has to be 3. I'll put that in my formula. Here's our width, 2 inches. And our height is the same as prism A at 8 inches. Now all we have to do is the math. 5 times 4 is 20. 20 times 8. Well, I know that 2 times 8 is 16. And we can add 1 0 to get 160. 3 times 2 is 6. And 6 times 8 equals 48. All right, so now all we have to do is our third step, which is to add or combine the two together. So we have 160 plus 48, 0 plus 8, 6 plus 4 we know equals 10, and 1 plus 1 is 2. So our total volume is 208 cubic inches. All right, let's look at one more example. So in the first example, we split or broke our solid figure apart vertically. So let's do this one horizontally. So now we have our 2 prisms, prism A and prism B. So again, we're going to need that formula twice. Length times width times height. Length times width times height. So let's start with prism A. Our length is 9. Our width is 4. And the height is 2. If we look at prism B, we see that the length is 4. But what about the width? I see that this entire width is 10 centimeters, but I'm only needing part of this. So how can I figure out what just this part is equal to? Well, I know that the total width is 10 centimeters. I know that the width from prism A was 4, so this has to be 6. And then the height, just like prism A, is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. 9 times 8 is 72. 4 times 6 is 24. 24 times 2 is 48. So now we have to complete our third step, and that is adding the two together to find the total volume. 2 plus 8 equals 10. 1 plus 7 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. So that gives us a total volume of 120 cubic centimeters. So to review those steps again real quick, we need to break apart the figure into 2 or more rectangular prisms. Then you need to calculate or find the volume for each prism. And then you're going to add the volume of all the prisms together to get the total volume of the irregular shape. It's easy as 1, 2, 3. Good job, guys.